It's time for the Phil Ferguson Show.
Hello, everybody. This is Phil Ferguson, and you are listening to the Phil Ferguson Show. I am so delighted and honored that you have shown up to listen to the show. Thank you for being there. Just got back myself. I just got back from the American Atheists Conference in Cincinnati, Ohio. Had a wonderful, wonderful time. Couple little complications. One, I found out 7 days in advance that I had a workshop to give on how to do podcasting. Thankfully, so many friends at the conference were willing to help me, and I want to thank them all, but I'm afraid I'm going to miss somebody, so I just do a blanket statement. Thank you, everyone that helped me. You know who you are. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. I appreciate it very, very much. I wasn't sure what I was going to do, and then kind of got the idea of getting maybe 10 different people together to talk about their experience in podcasting, and even a couple people in making videos. So we each talked about a little bit about the equipment we use, about how we host our show, how we get guests, how one talks to guests, how you edit, what do you use to edit, what kind of microphone, all that detail that you never think you'd have to need to know to do a podcast, because quite frankly, at least to me, it sounded so simple, but there's work involved. So we went over a lot of that. And I really hope that some new shows launch because of that. I kind of figured that maybe 10 people would show up to the workshop, but our room was really close to full. We had around 100 people in there. So thank you, everyone that came. Hopefully you enjoyed it as much as I did. It sounded like some of the reviews were really, really flattering at all of the content that was provided, because we just, for an hour, dumped information on people. And so if you took a lot of notes, you could start your own podcast. So hopefully that was beneficial. Later on in the show, I'm going to have about 28 minutes of really quick interviews, maybe 2 to 3 minutes apiece, maybe 8 or 9 people. I actually just edited it, but can't remember the exact number. I walked around the vendor room and talked to different tables. So you'll hear the background noise of people talking. And I was really concerned that was going to overpower the interviews, but I think it works. Let me know. I think it sounds pretty sexy. I think it gives that energy of the cacophony of voices in the background. So hopefully you like that as much as I do. And of course, after this intro segment, we're going to have our Investing Skeptically segment, which is about the U.S. stock market and volatility, and just some thoughts about that and why you shouldn't be worried in the short run about volatility if you have a proper plan. And then after that, kind of like a bonus segment, right before I went to Cincinnati for the American Atheists Conference, my wife and I went to a tax info session. I honestly thought it was going to be a scammy thing to sell us annuities, but you have to wait to find out for that bonus Investing Skeptically segment. So again, thank you for being here, and I've got a lot of stuff today, so we're just going to get right into the show. This Investing Skeptically segment is about the U.S. stock market returns and volatility, because they kind of go together. The returns in the long run are amazing. The volatility in the short run is also amazing and can really scare the crap out of a lot of people. So this is why I often say there is no trying the stock market. You either do or do not. If ever I get a client that says, or a prospective client that says, okay, let's try your way for a year or two, I say, no, that's not how it works. And here's the reason. Let me start with the volatility. I'm looking at a website called Advisor Perspectives, and I'll put a link to it in the show notes. I think it's publicly available. I don't think I have special access to it. And it's got a lot of cool graphs and charts. The nice thing is it's all these cool graphs and charts, but one must be careful to not read too much into the graphs and charts. And I'll get into that in a minute into the data, but something to look at. Since 2008, there have been, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 times that the stock market in a very short period of time has lost 5% or more. 19 times. And the amount of times it's lost 10% or more, that one's 9.94 loss. I'm going to count that 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-ish times in 10 years. So almost every year there's a loss of 10% or more. And there are 4 of them that are 14% or more. And we're doing this segment in April of 2019. And the most recent one, the fourth quarter of 2018, was a loss on the S&P 500 of 19.78%. And as you may know, that's a pretty big drop. And it's one of those things that it did spook only a couple of my clients who called me and asked about it, which is good because apparently the vast majority of my clients understand that that's what happens in the stock market from time to time. There are these occasional really big drops. Sometimes the market comes back right away. Sometimes not so much, but them's is the breaks. And how you avoid that when you get close to or in retirement is with the cushion, which we've talked about. And of course, we will always talk about it more because this is how this works. So that volatility is there, and it's not to be trifled with, I guess. The year-to-date return on the S&P 500, let's see, this is from Vanguard's website. I'm not going to give you a link. You can just Google Vanguard S&P 500. Their fund, which very, very closely matches the actual S&P 500, is up 15.85%, almost 16% as of April 10th. So that's a hell of a rebound. What will it do next? Who knows? It could stay flat for the next quarter. It could go up 15%. It could fall 15%. Almost anything can happen. And that's one of the risks and or the problems with investing in stock market. And that's one of the things that keeps a lot of people out because they're afraid they could put money in. For example, if you are saving up to buy a house or put a down payment on a house, putting your money in the stock market and say you're going to buy a house in 2 or 3 years, you could make a lot of money. You could also lose a whole lot of money. So would you be able to still buy your house if you lost 25 or 30%? If that changes your answer and you can't buy the house, maybe that's a really bad idea for you. So, but in the long run, nothing beats the performance of the stock market. Matter of fact, the S&P 500 has gone up as an index, just the price point. So this is if you Google it and map it yourself, chart it yourself, it's gone up something like 250% since the beginning of 2009, which of course was right after the 2008 year where the market went down 37%. So it kind of had a cheating low point. These results are better than they look because you started so low. But that return is about 250% if you include the dividends. And I think one must include the dividends. And again, now I'm looking at the Vanguard S&P 500 index on the Vanguard website. It says the cumulative 10-year performance is 333%. 333% over 10 years, and that works out to an annual average of about 15.77%. And that's per year, 15+% per year. Now, I don't expect that going forward. 10 is probably the much more likely number because when you look at 1 or 200 year performance, that's more what you're going to see. And maybe it's not even that high. Maybe it's 8. Often when I'm planning or guessing, I guess, people's in portfolio value in the future, I often use 8%. If they're mostly stock. If it's a stock bond mix, I might use 6 or 7%. And sometimes people say, why do you use 6 or 7% or 8% when you think it might be 10? Because if you end up with more money than I prognosticate, no one's ever been upset about that. If I use 10, and if 10 is actually the average, there's a 50-50 chance that you could have materially more or materially less than my future guesses might show. If I use 8% and you go out something like 15 or 20 years, now there's something like 95% probability that you're going to have around that much or more. And like I said, very few people complain about the or more. Another thing I did is a different way to look at this is I looked at the performance over 10 years from last quarter to this quarter. And for this purposes, I used the total stock market index. I don't know why I used the total stock market index instead of the S&P 500, but it's interesting that in the long run, the results are about the same. The total stock market, again, as measured by Vanguard's Total Stock Market Index Fund, the symbol here is VTSAX. The average return per year is 16.05. And the nice thing about that is it's about what the S&P 500 made, which was 15.77, but it's a little higher, 0.3, 0.4 higher, which is kind of what you might expect because there's exposure to small caps. However, in the last 1, 3, and 5 years, the S&P 500 has outperformed the smaller caps, which makes me a little more interested in small caps as a relationship to large caps. Now, don't get crazy. Don't take 50 or 80% of your money and put it in small caps. It's a small difference, but can we take advantage of that? The market neutral position for the United States stock market might be something like 75, maybe 75% large cap, and then 25 to 30% mid and small cap. Right now, I have the mid and small cap. Well, it was weighted around 40%. Now I'm around 42%. And you don't have to be exactly there, but you get the idea, somewhere in the ballpark. And you might lag on the adjustments if you have all your money in a taxable account. Maybe you can adjust with new money in. And the reason for that is that you might get a big tax bill. Although one can make an argument that you should create a large capital gains tax bill, not too big, because you could pay 15 or 20% depending on your bracket and lock in those taxes and pay them now and reset your cost basis up so that in the future, if capital gains tax rates go up, you would pay that higher percentage on a smaller amount of growth. Just something else. Maybe I'll do a whole show on that sometime. But anyway, back to the total stock market performance. What I wanted to do, and what I'm going to do because it's my show, is compare 1, 3, 5, and 10-year performance numbers of the exact same instrument, but measured from 2 different points in time. So the 2 different points in time are March 31st of 2019 and December 31st of 2018. And you might think to yourself, well, Phil, how different could they be just 3 months later? Well, let's find out, shall we? If we look at the 1-year historical performance of the Vanguard Total Stock Market Index as of March 31st, the 1-year return is positive 8.8%. So the 12 months running up to and ending March 31st, 8.8%. The 12 months ending December 31st of 18 was minus 5.17%. So that difference, of course, is around 13, 14%, which is just about how much the market jumped in the first quarter of 19. So you added a great big run up and you took off what probably was something close to flat a year and 3 months prior. So you're measuring a slightly different time frame. It's only shifted by 3 months, but the results are incredibly different. So you might have looked at the 1-year return at the end of the year and saw minus 5% and thought to yourself, that's awful. I don't want to invest. And then now you look at the 1-year return of 8.8%, and now you think, hey, that's great. I want to invest. The better time to invest would have been 3 to 4 months ago when everyone's scared and you have a big drop. But that's not how humans often think. So if we look at the 3-year return, the variation is not as large, but I think it's bigger than, at least bigger than I would have expected. For the S&P, our total stock market ending 12/31 of 18, the average 3-year return was 8.99%. We move forward just 3 months, and the average return is 13.5%, or an increase of 4.5%. I don't think all of that comes from just one quarter, but it's a really big part of it. And you also would have to go look at, which I did not, what happened 3 years and 3 months ago. Was there a big drop then that we've taken advantage of? The 5-year numbers, similar thing, but a little bit smaller effect. The difference is 7.9 versus 10.3. And when we go out to the 10-year performance, we're looking at 13.25% per year for 10 years, ending December 31st of 2018. But if we look at ending March 31st of 2019, the result is 16.05, almost 3 percentage points higher. And that's one of the reasons I caution, as I did earlier in this segment, about looking at this data. What do you do with it? What do you make of it? I don't know what to make of it necessarily. And those 10-year numbers, normally those would be kind of numbers that would scare me a little and make me want to be a little more conservative. Well, a couple of things temper that position for me right now is that the year before the 10-year measure, I just mentioned it a few minutes ago, 2008, the market went down 37%. So when you're starting this 10-year time period, you're starting at a great big fat old bottom. What if you started 1 year earlier and took 37% off all those gains? If nothing else, it should be about 3% less per year, which gets your 16 down to around 13, which is still above average, but it's not crazy. So which is the right point to measure from? Maybe mix of both, or maybe you go out 15 years or 20 years. And the returns have been pretty good for a considerable period of time since the end of the .com crash, where it went down almost 50% over a year and a half, 2 years. So we've done very well. And maybe you should be a little more cautious than you should have been 4 or 5 years ago. And that's why I have my cushion, which is normally 10 to 12 years worth of cushion, is now currently 12 to 14 years worth of cushion, which I adjusted up over the last couple of years. And I think that's a nice place. I'm not changing that, but just keep in mind that if you're close to or in retirement, you must have your cushion set up correctly. If you don't know how to do that, or if you're not sure how to do that, if you're not sure if you've managed to do it correctly, you may send me an email and we'll talk. You can eventually send me your statement, but don't just send that to me cold, because if you mistype my email address, I don't want your information going somewhere else. So you can contact me, phil@polarisfinancialplanning.com. Just send me an email with your phone number. I'll call you. We'll have a 10, 15-minute chat if that's all it takes. If it needs to be longer, we can talk a little longer. I try to fit people as much as I can in. And, now that tax season is wrapping up, hopefully I have a little more time, but I do have some more trips planned. But let's see what we can do to help you out. If at some point you want to hire me, we can talk about that. If a phone call gets you everything you need and helps nudge you in the right direction, that's cool too. And you don't have to pay me a dime. If you feel bad about it, you can donate to the Secular Student Alliance. So everybody wins. I'm happy because I really like helping people out. You're happy because you're more confident, or you're going to do better with your portfolio. And the kids the kids get some money. You can help fund the next generation of secular activists because, quite frankly, we're not all going to be around. And even though I'm only in my early 50s, I don't expect religion to disappear within my lifetime. So the battle must continue. Anyway, I'm prattling on. That is some information about U.S. stock market returns and U.S. stock market volatility. So enjoy the big returns, but be advised there is significant volatility. Okay, I'm here doing a bonus investing skeptically segment with my wife, Robin. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Wow, it's like you're in the studio.
I guess so.
Yeah, today we're doing this weird. We're doing it with one mic.
One couple, one mic?
Yeah, one couple, one mic. There's a podcast like that you may have seen. Yeah, this is different.
Okay.
And Robin's been on the show a couple times, but it's been a while. So how you been?
Fabulous, thank you.
Welcome back to the cleverly titled The Phil Ferguson Show.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. See, when I'm not talking, you need to talk because they can't see us. So that it's just like, what the fuck? It's bad radio.
Oh, okay.
So where'd we go this evening?
We went to neighborhood library, and we heard a presentation about 2018 taxes and the changes that took place and how they affected the citizens, I guess would be one way of putting it.
Yeah, I happened to stumble across this on social media, that there was this free information on retirement and taxes, which sounded to me like a kind of a little cheese in the mousetrap, this little bait in the mousetrap to bring in old people like me to come and hear what this expert has to say about taxes, and then at the end he'll sell me an annuity. But it really wasn't that.
No, not at all.
So that's cool. What was this thing called anyway? Do you remember?
Oh, Tax Cuts and Job Act?
No, that's not the name of the event. I can't even remember the name of the event. You keep stalling and I'll look for it.
Okay, no, wait, it was something 567.
Yeah, it had okay. The organization is called Taxes in Retirement 567, and their website definitely scared me. It definitely scared me because the website is squared. Yeah, I can't fucking talk. Good thing I don't do this for a living. It just says so. It has these questions. Is there a sales pitch? No. Our seminars are strictly educational, and so they promise not to have a sales pitch. Did they have a sales pitch?
They did not have a sales pitch.
So I have to admit, I was skeptical, and often my skepticism is rewarded with a slimy bastard giving me a sales pitch.
True.
But in this case, they did not. But then they had, like, this is on their website, how does TIR, that's taxes in retirement, how does it make money? And they have this thing on their website that says, TIR 567 is primarily funded by private and corporate entities. What the fuck is that? That's vaguer than nothing. So I was like, oh, they're being a little dodgy here in answering these questions. So it looks like this taxes and retirement organization is probably like a marketing thing, and it helps advisors organize educational presentations.
Correct.
And so this guy made a presentation, and he compared details in the tax code between 2017 and 2018. So what'd you think? How'd he do?
Overall, I learned things. He liked when the participants asked questions.
I have to give him props for that. There's some other concerns which we'll get to in a minute, but he encouraged people to ask questions, and when they did, he was wonderful. One of the single best presentations I've seen of this effect ever in my entire life. True. He seemed genuinely interested and encouraged people to ask questions. So 10 out of 10 on that measurement factor. I think he did a great job.
And he also made sure that you understood his answer before he moved on.
He tried.
No. Because he may have not provided the answer, but he made sure that everyone understood before they moved on. And it's the participants' fault if they just kind of went, okay.
Yeah. I think there's merit to your point there, because a couple times people ask questions and he would ask, did my answer explain what you asked? And they would just go, yeah, because they didn't want to embarrass themselves by saying, no, I still don't understand.
Perhaps.
So I can't fault him too much on that, but and I can't fault him too much for putting on a presentation that brings in people so that he can become known to them, because that's ultimately, at least this guy's goal, is that you know him and you think he's an expert on some things. So when you want to have questions and things about investments, you might hire him. And I definitely can't complain about that, because in a way, that's kind of the point of this podcast. So I don't want to be too critical of that. So I'm not objecting to that. But one of the things I did have a problem with is that he seemed like sometimes he didn't really know what he was talking about. What do you think?
There were one or two times where the information that he provided seemed, when you talk about something that you tend to become animated, and you can definitely, if you're watching someone, you can tell that they know this, they got it, they can't wait to share it.
Yeah.
And there were some parts where it was like you're trying to get through the telemarketer who's giving the script, and you can't get your question in because they're still on like sentence number 6 of their script. You're like, stop, just stop.
Yeah. And I think it was that there's a company that helps him bring in people, and then there's a company that provided this nice brochure about the taxes. What is this called here? Broadridge Advisor Solutions. And so this is their gig. They make packets. They make these little pamphlets you can hand out to people that have a ton of tax information in it. And it appears that they also provided a matching PowerPoint. And so he used their PowerPoint, but it seemed to me that a couple times he was covering the information in the PowerPoint, but didn't fully understand the information in the PowerPoint. So that was kind of a sad point for me, that he wasn't able to modify it and take out stuff that he didn't know, or really answer questions. Does that make sense?
That makes sense, and it's probably something that you would have noticed more than I, since you spend more time in this world than I do.
Fair enough. And I think the objective of this was for him to present himself as an educator, as providing information about taxes, so people go, hey, this is a guy that knows some things, knows more than me.
Knows more than me.
Well, knows more than the average person in the room. And then they might engage him with questions, and he can say, now I can set up a free consultation. And maybe he gets a client. I think there was like 19 people there, counting the two of us.
Yes, that's about right.
So he was able to present to 17 people.
And we were on the younger end of the spectrum.
Yeah, I think for the marketing, that makes sense for them, because on average, older people, if anyone has money, it's likely an older person, because 20-year-olds generally don't have money. There's always exceptions like Paris Hilton or something, but...
Sure. She's not 20 anymore.
No, not anymore. That's so hot. So any other thoughts you had about the presentation, or what we learned?
I liked how he explained the changes in 2018, that while the tax, technically for most, well, except for 2 tax brackets, pretty much everyone got a reduction in the percentage of tax that they pay.
Well, in the rate.
Correct. In the rate.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, get the right words. In the rate. So, but that the, the range of income had expanded, and, he made it, I didn't realize that the income, brackets had expanded so greatly.
Yeah.
And and how he said they cut the rate, but they expanded the amount of
the size of
it. Exactly.
Yeah. So it was informational. It was educational. You could absolutely know nothing and get the information that he's handed out and learn some things. One of the things that is a problem is that this presentation he read from the screen and had the handouts for was comparing 2017 to 2018 tax rules and tax brackets, and we're now in April of 2019, so 2018 is over, and it didn't really have any information about what you can do to save taxes or manage your money. But it was just a nice way for a company to provide information so that you can get to know that advisor. And, I can't knock them for doing that.
Right. No, I don't think you should either. So.
Okay. Unless you've got anything else that kind of wraps up our review of this little encounter we went to. And
no, we're not done, because while we were eating our pizza and talking about this, some of the information only gave half the story.
Oh, go on.
So there was a graphic that had you want to go to this, don't you? I do want to go to this. So there's this circle, and it says, percentage of total federal income tax paid for the year. And the data is from 2015, because that is the data that was available when this was published. And it was the top 10% of all filers paid 71% of all taxes. Yeah. And the bottom 90% of filers paid 29% of the taxes. But as you said at dinner, what piece of information are we missing?
Yeah. And so this is one of those things that I'm not sure what this data was supposed to tell me, what I'm supposed to do with this information. And because of my experience with this and people and arguments on Facebook and Twitter, I'm extra sensitive to this. And he started off rubbing me the wrong way, and I was just going to let this go. But now that you brought it up, we're going to talk about it.
Okay.
And so this chart shows that roughly 71% of all taxes, all federal taxes, federal income taxes, I got to be very clear here, is paid by 10% of the population. Without knowing more information, what does that mean and what people want to think that it means? What are you showing me here?
The top 5% accounted for about 60% of the total.
And it kind of implies, those poor, pitiful rich folk are paying all the taxes. And if you look at it, 10% of people are paying 71% of taxes. That just seems intuitively unfair. But what we don't know, did the 10% of the wealthiest Americans make 80% of the income? Because there's a huge income disparity in this country. So if they made 80% of the income, but paid 70% of the taxes, they're getting away with murder, and they're not paying enough taxes.
Correct.
But we weren't provided that information.
Nope.
So I think most people expect the highest income people to pay more taxes, but they don't expect them to pay 71%. But we don't know how much of the money they made.
Where's the Paul Harvey? Where's the rest of the story?
Where's the rest of the story?
Exactly.
So it's one of those things that it kind of started off with that, and I don't know what the intent of that was for the audience, because people are like, oh, damn, those rich people are paying too much, or were they supposed to be sympathetic that I'm a rich person because I'm at the seminar and I'm paying too much? But then he never really told us how we could avoid taxes. So
because it was educational.
It was educational. It wasn't tax planning advice.
So it's like they planted a nugget. Wherever you fall on the spectrum, there's that nugget that this stuck with us. So how do we either...
And of course, this is only one of the little bits of the dozens and dozens of taxes people pay. So like sales tax, everyone pays the same. And so that tax could be considered regressive if you spend a greater portion of your money on things that you have to buy. You're paying more in sales tax than a rich person might.
Right.
Social Security is not included in this. That could be considered a regressive tax, because once you make over like $120,000, you don't pay any more Social Security income tax.
Correct.
Similar things with Medicare. And of course, this doesn't include capital gains tax rates, where a really rich person would pay 20%, not up to 35% as someone who's earning income. So it's one little piece of this giant income pie that without the other information looks like wealthy people pay too much in tax. And I find it disingenuous.
I would have to agree.
All right.
Now it can be done if you want
now
to be
we're done?
Now we can be done.
I'm done. We've got almost 15 minutes into this as our bonus segment. So if you guys like this chat with me, myself, and my wife, Robin, send me an email, Phil@Polaris Financial Planning, and maybe we can do some more with this. Maybe we can give Robin some quiz questions. Who knows what we'll do. But let me know what you think. Thanks.
Bye.
The Phil Ferguson Show is for educational purposes only. Nothing said on the show should be interpreted as personalized investment advice. Your investments should be based on your situation, and you should consult with your financial advisor before taking any action. The show may contain ads. These ads are placed into the show by the hosting company after I finish recording and editing. I have little control over the content of the ads, and you should not assume that I support their products or claims. If you choose to support the show via the new Patreon page, that support does not create an advisor-client relationship.
We do not accept that there is a God or gods, personal or in nature, manifesting himself, herself, itself, or themself in any way. We do not accept the idea of heaven, hell, perdition, purgatory, or any other of the stages reached by escalator going either up or down. We do not accept that there is any life after death. We do not accept miracles. We do not accept the idea of angels, spooks, goblins, gremlins, leprechauns, elves, or souls. We simply do not accept that anyone at any time was ever a prophet of God who did not exist or which did not exist. We do not accept any so-called holy books as guides to life, and that includes the Bible, the Torah, the Veda, the Koran, the Upanishads, the Awaspi, they invent them constantly. We don't care whether that book was written by anyone in history, in any age in history, whether that was written by Moses, Mary Baker Eddy, Paul, Joseph Smith, Mohammed, Gautama Buddha, or the fickle finger of fate.
Northern Indiana Atheists, and I'm here with Daniel. How are you doing, Daniel?
Hey, Phil, how are you?
Tell me about Northern Indiana Atheists.
Sure, Phil. Northern Indiana Atheists is a non-for-profit organization that started a little less than a year ago, set up to fight for the rights of atheists and to fight church and state issues in our state. So we've been really busy. Obviously, we have a lot of issues going on. We had a holiday display at the County City Building in South Bend where we put up our lovely, you can't see it, but it says, "O come all ye faithless, even heathens celebrate the season, happy holidays no matter what you celebrate." And we set that up right next to a nativity scene with a Christmas tree that has been there for 50 years. And we petitioned the city of Bloomington to take down religious iconography out of their office building where people come in and pay their bills. And so we've been doing a lot of stuff, and we're happy to be here. This is our first year here.
Now, it's, of course, Northern Indiana Atheists. Is that the Michiana area? Are you South Bend? Where exactly can people find you?
Sure. We are located out of South Bend, and we cover all the way from Porter County straight east to Angola, and all the way down to about Rochester in that area, that top clunk of Indiana. We also do stuff for southern Michigan, but we still call ourselves Northern Indiana Atheists, although we help anybody.
And so if people are in that area or just want to stop by and visit, how do they reach you? How do they contact you or the group?
We are on Facebook. Just search for Northern Indiana Atheists. We are at www.northernindianaatheists.com, and we're also on Meetup and Twitter.
Now, were you involved in giving me that church budget about a year ago? Were you involved in that?
Absolutely, yeah. That was something we ran across by accident, actually. President Troy Moss and I were out auditing churches during our primary election this past November, and we stopped by a church that had their budget sitting out for anybody to see and pick up. So we're like, hey, what the heck? So we grabbed a couple of them, and we looked at them, and it was astounding how little was going towards helping people and how much was going towards the operation and paying the pastors and the secretaries and the janitors.
Well, Daniel, you may not know, but that's become a recurring segment on my show now called Church Money. And so any listeners, that's where it started, from the geniuses in northern Indiana. They gave me a budget. If you see a budget in a church, for whatever reason, pick up a copy and send it to me. Any last thoughts, Daniel, about the group?
So glad to be here, and thank you for talking with me, Phil. It's so nice to see you again. And thank you for coming out to speak in South Bend. We look forward to having you again. Thank
you, Daniel. Have a great show. I'm here with Chad, and he's part of the Tri-State Freethinkers. So, Chad, how you doing?
I'm doing good. You don't have to pretend like you don't know me. I've seen you like 3 or 4 times.
Please tell us about Tri-State Freethinkers and where you're located.
Okay, well, we're located right here in the Cincinnati area, the Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana area, and we're the local activist group. We have almost 3,000 members here locally, and we have some that are a little bit further away. And we do all sorts of things. Big thing is church-state separation and equal rights is one of our 2 big points that we try and go for.
Now, I know you guys also do Arc Park, Adventure Park protests. Tell me about that, and when is that coming up?
Okay, that's going to be on July 6th on a Saturday, and we'll have you there, obviously, emceeing it again. We always enjoyed you there. And we're going to hopefully have some more speakers. Haven't quite narrowed it down yet on who we're going to get, but we're going to be protesting their hiring practices, the fact that they're getting tax money, their I got the whole list here. I got to look at. They're discriminating hiring practices. They're anti-science. They're controlling of people's sex lives, because if you're single, you have to sign a vow of chastity. So they're worried about what people do with their genitals when they're not at work.
Great. And how can people find the organization online? Is there a Facebook page, website?
Yes, we have a Facebook page and a website, Tri-State Freethinkers. Our Facebook page is a little bit more active as far as updates. Also, Meetup has all our events listed. You can just search the Tri-State Freethinkers in the Cincinnati area, and you should be able to find us.
Great. Well, Chad, thank you so much for taking a few minutes with me.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
All right. I moved to another table here. I am at the Oasis Network table with Johnny. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much for visiting us.
Oh, it is my pleasure. And tell us a little bit about Oasis, and then tell us where people can find an Oasis community. Is that the right thing to say?
That's exactly right. So Oasis is a secular alternative to traditional religious communities. We get together on Sunday mornings for coffee, live music, and an educational talk. Different speaker every time, different topic every time. We have a kids program where people will get together and bring their families. And when outside of a Sunday gathering, we'll do social events, and we'll also do community service. It's very important for us to make a meaningful difference in our communities. We've got 10 locations so far throughout the U.S. and Canada. We've got Houston. We've got a couple of locations in Houston. We've got a couple of locations in Utah, Kansas City, and Toronto, and we've got a couple of more. So we're here today to tell people if there's one nearby, come hang out with us and enjoy a gathering. And if you're not near us yet, and you are interested in something like that, we have got all the resources you need to get together and start one.
And so before I got my microphone, we were talking about Chicago. Any plans on putting one in Chicago? Do you need some volunteers? What's going on with Chicago?
Thank you for asking. We want to have a strong Oasis community in every major place. So right now we don't have one in Chicago. What we're doing is we want to get people who are interested and connect them together. So sometimes if we find a contact in Chicago or in any place, we'll say, well, form a launch team. And if they're like, I've got a couple, but I still need some more, we'll say, okay, well, any inquiries that are coming through us online, we'll connect you with them. So as long as we get enough of those, we'll get people connected and be able to launch a team and then give them all the resources they need to do that.
And once again, where can they find you on the interwebs?
Thank you for asking. You can find us at worldwideweb.networkoasis.org, and on that you'll be able to see all the other Oasis communities that you can go. If you're ever in a different part of town and you want to go visit somewhere, pop into an Oasis gathering. We meet every single week, and I think it'll be a good experience.
Excellent. Well, Johnny, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
I've moved on to my next table here, and I'm with Hector A. Garcia. How are you, sir?
I'm doing very well, Phil. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Thank you for asking. I'm here at your table, and I see a couple books, and if I'm correct, this one here is brand new, right?
Yes.
And you were actually on my show talking about Alpha God. So tell us about Alpha God, and then a little bit about the new book, please.
Well, Alpha God takes a look at some of the inconsistencies in the Abrahamic God. Why this God is omnipotent, omniscient, everlasting, but is interested in these very pedestrian concerns like submission displays, sex, food, territory, because he's based on an alpha male primate of our evolutionary past. We know this. We know this God. We know the primate hierarchy. We project all this stuff into the ether. So I unpackage that using the evolutionary sciences.
Excellent. And the new book, Sex, that's all I need to know, but what's the full title?
Sex, Power, and Partisanship. How Evolutionary Science Explains Our Political Divide. So basically it's explaining political partisanship through the lens of evolutionary science. It explains why political partisanship is so irrational and heated emotionally, and places it in the context of our reproductive biology and psychology.
Great. And if someone wants to talk to you or buy your books or have you come speak at a conference, how do they reach you?
The best way is hector-garcia.com. There's a way to contact me through my website. And the books are all up on Amazon and in local Barnes & Noble, stuff like that. So,
great. Well, Hector, thank you for your time.
Phil, good talking to you again.
For our next stop, we have Stephanie Zvan. I don't know why I was having so much trouble with your name. My apologies. But you have a podcast. Are you still doing your podcast? I think you are, right?
I'm still working with Atheist Talk Radio, which is a production of Minnesota Atheists. We're actually on live radio on Sunday mornings, and then we do release it as a podcast.
And, of course, you have a table here at the American Atheist Conference. And why don't you tell us about what's on your table, what you're promoting here, and how people can learn more?
The table is for Secular Woman, which I am also on the board of. Secular Woman was founded in 2012 to amplify the voices of secular women, basically. We do that in a couple of different ways. We do some of that work within the movement. For our Secular Women Work Conference, for example, we have put on 2 conferences now that are basically activist training conferences where every speaker, every panelist, every workshop leader is a woman or genderqueer, because genderqueer folks in the movement also have significant underrepresentation. And we do that in part so that nobody can tell us that they can't find enough female speakers. We also do it because, we're a volunteer-run movement, by and large. And when we're looking at who is doing volunteer work, we're actually getting to the bulk of this is done by women, even in a movement that has been as lopsided as the secular movement. But when we look at who's on stage, and particularly back in 2012 when we started, we weren't looking at the women who were doing the work. So we have been working for several years to bring them forward, to make sure that they have some experience and some training, putting on workshops, speaking, that sort of thing. We also work with other organizations within the movement to help them answer their question of why don't women show up for our meetings, which takes a variety of shapes, but we've been working on that for that period of time. And then we also work to make sure that issues that are considered women's issues but are still separation of church and state issues don't fall off the radar of our organizations.
Do you think things are, even if it's slowly, improving?
Yes. Things actually improved pretty rapidly from about 2012 to about 2015 because I think there really were a number of movements that wanted to do better. They were asking, why can't we get women? Because they actually wanted to know. And so once they had resources, things have improved a lot. And a lot more women have gotten into leadership on the local level. Not quite so much at the national level, but I think the situation was a little better at the national level to start with, particularly on boards. But also we had a situation where much of the leadership of organizations was male and much of the junior staff was female. Those have continued to move up through the ranks, those who haven't left. So that's helped some.
And you said you've had a couple conferences. When is the next one?
That's a really good question. We went 3 years between our first two conferences, and the last one we put on last year in 2018. We are also running the workshops for Skepticon this year. We've had our own track of workshops there for the last about 5 years, I think. And so this year we're doing the administrative stuff on all the workshops since we're already doing it on ours, and still running our own track of workshops.
And where can people find you on the internets?
They can find us at secularwomen.org, and we also have a Facebook page that we're generally pretty good about keeping up to date, although at this point we have had a lot of things in the works for a little while, so it looks old, but there are things coming.
Well, Stephanie, thank you for taking a couple of minutes to talk to me. I appreciate it very much.
Thanks, Phil.
Our next stop is with Mandisa Thomas, and she's involved with Black Nonbelievers. Mandisa, how are you today?
I am doing well. Thank you, Phil.
What is your involvement? Didn't you start Black Nonbelievers?
Yes, I'm the founder of the national organization, and we've been around for 8 years now. Have actually been tabling at the American Atheists Convention since 2012.
And I'm looking here. You guys got double table, right?
Yes.
So you guys got to overdo everything. I love it. And when is your next major event?
Well, our first major event is in October from the 4th through the 6th. It's the Women of Color Beyond Belief Conference, the first one ever in Chicago.
I like it very much, and I'm expecting to be there. That's cool, right? I can show up?
Yes, you can. You may show up and you may support. We want everyone to support and attend this conference.
Because I know some people get a little confused, and maybe it's me too. This is open to everybody. And often there are people who need this conference and they can come. How do we get more information about this event?
Yes, you may visit blacknonbelievers.org or wocbelief.com. But if you reach blacknonbelievers.org, you will find that and more information.
Great. And I guess you have chapters around the country, right? Tell us about those. And can you list them all off the top of your head still?
Yeah, yes, I can. So Black Nonbelievers started in Atlanta, and so now we have a total of 14 affiliate groups across the United States. They are based there in Charlotte, Detroit, Dallas, New York City, Portland, Oregon. We just started one in Richmond, Virginia. We also have one here in Cincinnati and in Louisville, Kentucky, and Orlando, Florida.
And how about my area, Chicago?
There used to be a group in Chicago, and we're hoping to revive that one in the very near future. But there are plenty of Chicago groups like the Freedom from Religion Foundation chapter and other organizations that are available.
And once again, give us the dates of that conference, and maybe people can look it up and go buy tickets, right?
Yes, absolutely. The dates are October 4th through the 6th. And you can find that website at you can find the information at blacknonbelievers.org.
Thank you so much for your time, Mandisa.
Thank you, Phil.
Next up, I have Gail Jordan, who is, you are the most dangerous woman in the country, the state. Tell us about you and what's going on.
Hi, it's Gail Jordan, the most dangerous woman in Tennessee. I'm here both as a speaker, but also as the executive director of Recovering from Religion.
Well, can you tell us a little bit about Recovering from Religion?
Thank you, Phil. Yes, we're a global nonprofit. We exist to provide hope, healing, and support to those who are struggling with doubt and non-belief anywhere on the spectrum. We have a 24-hour telephone hotline, a 24-hour internet chat, online community groups, support groups, and we also have, of course, the Secular Therapy Project, which is where you can find a secular therapist if you put in your location and your requirement. And everything we do is about trying to help folks who are struggling with the issues that are sometimes seismic surrounding doubt and non-belief.
Now, do you guys have a conference or an event coming up in the near future, anything like that going on that we should tell everybody about?
Thanks for asking about that. As I said, all of our efforts are directed toward how can we help. And in putting together ideas for how we can do that, we have come up with a brilliant idea of having a real-time weekend religion recovery retreat. It's going to be held in the mountains of eastern North Carolina in September of 2019. All the details are at the website. It's cabins. It's all of the good stuff from the church retreat that you remember and none of the bad. We'll have bonfires. We'll have therapists on hand. It's a place and a time to begin to unpack the baggage that keeps us weighed down.
Oh, that sounds like a lot of fun. I'm going to have to double check my calendar, but I don't know if I can make it. But Also, recovering from religion, you guys, you don't deconvert, do you? You're just there to help. Walk me through that logic.
Sure. We're very careful about that with our reputation because, number one, that's what religion does, and we certainly don't want to do that. We want you to develop your critical thinking skills. And number two, because our outreach is to the religious community, we zealously guard our reputation of not being a deconversion process. We're here for a sympathetic listening ear. We're here to provide resources, podcasts, blogs, websites, books that we would recommend. And we're here for as a place for anyone to ask a question without judgment.
I like it, Gail. Thank you so much for taking a few minutes to talk to me. I appreciate it very much.
My pleasure. Have a wonderful convention.
Next, I'm at the Secular Student Alliance table, and I found I think it's Executive Director, Kevin Bowling. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Phil. Thank you.
And why don't you tell us about the Secular Student Alliance? And I'm assuming you have another summer conference this year.
We do have our annual conference. This will be our 16th conference. And so for the past years, it's been in Ohio, because that's where the organization is based. We've actually moved out to Los Angeles this year. And so it's coming up on July 12th through the 14th. Registration's available online. For us, it's always a great chance to have a group of student leaders from all across the country. This year, we're really focusing in on community and skills building for organizations and student leaders. So we're really proud about it, and it's always a great experience in the summer.
And so that's not right after 4th of July, but a whole week after the 4th of July in L.A. And where do people find more information? There's a website, I'm assuming.
There is. They can find it on our website at secularstudents.org. And registration's open, and we have housing information, and all that sort of stuff is on the website. Or give us a call. We're always happy.
So that all sounds cool, but what does Secular Student Alliance do? And if one of my listeners wants to throw some money at you, how can they do that?
Sure. We love it when people throw money at us. So Secular Student Alliance, we're the only secular organization that specifically deals with high school and college-aged atheists, humanists, and non-theist students. And so we have about 300 chapters all across the United States, and the students do a wide variety of programming, whatever meets the needs of their campus, and we're here to support and help them grow. And so that's primarily our focus. Our student members are all free. And so we look at having non-student members help sponsor students. And so donations are easy, and we fortunately have a lot of supporters, and we love that. And they can go to the donate button on our website at secularstudents.org.
Kevin, thank you so much for taking a minute to talk to me.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, next up on our journey through the exhibitor room, I'm with Noelle George. And Noelle, what is this group that we're here for?
Well, I'm with Foundation Beyond Belief. We are an organization that infuses philanthropy with secular values instead of religious values.
Now, if I recall correctly, you guys rotate the beneficiaries every quarter. Can you tell us about that process?
Yes. Every quarter, we look for, vet, and select 4 beneficiaries to direct funding toward that are working on various causes around the world. And we have a very thorough and extensive vetting process that we use to make sure the beneficiaries are secular, efficient, that they're using scientific reasoning to evaluate their programs, evidence-based programming, and other values that are secular values.
And can money ever go to a religious group that's doing secular work?
We do not do that anymore. We used to have a program called Challenge the Gap that went to a religiously identified non-proselytizing group that's working for the greater good. We don't have that program anymore at the moment. It's kind of on hiatus because we're going through a really exciting stage of strategic planning and thinking about the future now that we're 10 years old this year. We've developed a lot of capacity and knowledge around philanthropy, and so we're looking at doing more direct service and how we can help the secular community more directly, and just all sorts of exciting ideas being thrown around right now.
So if someone wants to give money, can they just give $100, or do they have to sign up, or can they sign up? Is it both available? Talk to me about that, and the website, of course.
I mean, we will take money whatever way you want to give it. We're not picky. We do have a monthly system for people who want to give on a more regular basis and make that kind of an automatic habit that you participate in. You can give directly to us to support us doing this type of work, or you can give to the charities that we support, or you can give to our disaster work. There's a lot of different options, and if you go to our website, foundationbeyondbelief.org, you can learn more about our different efforts, our different programs, and how you can help.
And if I recall correctly, and of course, correct me if I'm wrong, you can give money that you guys pass through 100%, or you can give money to your organization so that people can pick and choose where they want the money to go. Is that right?
Yes. We actually, if you give money to the Humanist Grants Program, which is where we pass through the funding, we only retain the fees, the collection fees that the platform that we use takes out. And other than that, 100% goes directly to the charities. We don't take a cut for operations. We do split it now between the four evenly, so we don't have the customizable option anymore. It was more efficient to do it the other way, and so, we value efficiency, so we changed it. You can also contribute to any one of our programs or directly to us.
Great. Give me that website one more time, please.
It's www.foundationbeyondbelief.org.
That sounds pretty easy, Noelle. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Phil.
Now I'm talking to Thomas Westbrook, and he has the YouTube channel. What is this called? Holy Kool-Aid. Yeah, Holy Kool-Aid. And, of course, you've been on the show before, but we're now at the American Atheist Conference, and you're in the vendor room, exhibitor room. How are things going in here? And I also understand you have a conference coming up that you've helped organize. Tell us about that.
Absolutely, Phil. It is fantastic to see and talk to you again. This conference right now at American Atheists is going fantastic. I'm having a great time getting to meet people, interact with them, engage with them, see faces of people whose lives have been touched and who've been reached by videos that I've made that, I make this stuff because I'm passionate about the topic, because I'm passionate about science, because I want to communicate and change hearts and minds and, destigmatize atheism and whatnot. But when you see people come up to you and they're like, I'm a huge fan, get to shake their hands, take selfies, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun, and you can tell that, there's a lot of change that's taking place. That America, 10, 15, 20 years ago was not nearly as friendly towards atheists and atheism. Being able to have a conference like this out in the open would be met with protests left and right, people holding billboards and signs, and I'm just not seeing that anymore. And instead I'm seeing a lot of receptivity and openness and people who are falling in love with science and technology and progress.
Now, I know you have a conference coming up, and it might be before this audio hits the podcast, but tell us about that and your plans for next year, please.
It most likely will be before this episode goes out, unless you're going to have it before next weekend, because it's April 27th in Dallas, Texas, but we're going to do it next year too. So right now, the deadline is kind of passed for this year. We sold out our tickets in 5 weeks, Phil. This conference was insanely successful. We barely even hit the marketing front on it. I hadn't even shouted out on my channel. Drew hadn't on his Genetically Modified Skeptic. He's also one of the board members. We barely started to promote the conference before it sold out. It was over 2 months out before the conference, and all our tickets were gone. We have a wait list of over 160 people right now. And I'm super excited. People can, if they want to go and find out more about it, they can go to faithlessforum.com. It's the first ever conference organized entirely by atheist YouTubers. We work with people like Cosmic Skeptic, Rationality Rules, Rachel Oates, Talk Heathen, one of the ACA's show, Truth Wanted, Kyle Curtis of the Non Sequitur Show. We got Christina Rad there. We have Shannon Q, Paula Gia. I'm trying to list all of them off the top of my head. I'm sorry if I miss anyone, but our lineup is just phenomenal, insane. Telltale Atheist, Prophet of Zod, me, Holy Kool-Aid, Genetically Modified Skeptic, just to name a few. And people are excited because where else can they go to meet their favorite atheist YouTubers? And we're bringing in the young people. We're bringing in people who are passionate about it, people who love YouTube and watching these arguments just get demolished and learning about science and learning about how the world works and, stretching our brains and expanding our horizons of what's possible with, for the human race to learn about in terms of philosophy and morality and science. And, I want us to be able to colonize Mars. And I see religion causing a lot of harm. I see it holding us back. I see human rights being violated. And it's groups like this that are able to get together, push back against that, and put together organizations, conferences. We're bringing it back next year. If you go to faithlessforum.com/purchase tickets, or just go to the site, click on the Purchase Tickets tab. You can sign up for the mailing list, get on the wait list. We'll notify you as soon as tickets are available next year. Get them before they go because demand is high. They go quick.
And, of course, one more time, tell us if in case I'm completely ignorant and I don't understand YouTube or how to find your videos, how do I do that?
You go to youtube.com/holykool-aid. I'm also on Twitter /holykool-aid, Facebook /holykool-aid. Animated videos break down scientific topics in a laser-focused way. Great resource. I work with scientists. I work with magicians. I work with all kinds of people. And hopefully it's a valuable resource for people when they're engaged in these arguments online. These topics come up. You're not sure where to go. Send them to my videos.
Thomas, thank you for taking time to talk to me.
Thank you so much, Phil. It's been awesome.
We do not accept that there is now or has ever been a holy person, and that includes everyone from Mother Teresa to Moses to Jesus Christ. We call him JC. Mohammed, his daughter Fatima, the angel Moroni, the Pope, any Pope, all of the popes, any oracles, self-appointed or appointed by other persons, or elected by strange men in long red dresses. We do not accept that there is any efficacy in prayer. And we don't care whether they're said by your legislator, George Bush, yourself, myself, a priest, a rabbi, a minister, a guru, or even your mama. Atheists see all of this, first, as being totally subjective and going on only in your little heads, nowhere else. And secondly, we see it basically as simply being silly. We don't hate you. We think you're quite odd. But these are all very ancient, outmoded fables, and we no longer need to cling to them in our modern world. The most difficult thing in the world to do is to live in it. Just to get along with other people, to earn a living, to meet our basic needs. And we do not need encumbered by all of these ideas which bring you a sense of guilt, a sense of inadequacy, of impotence. We need a decent, modern, sophisticated, workable set of standards by which we can get along with ourselves and others.
You're listening to The Bill Ferguson Show.
Just a couple of quick follow-up notes here as we wrap up the show. Hopefully in the next week or two, I'm going to have on Mandisa Thomas, and we're going to talk about the conference that she is working on in my own backyard, not literally my house's backyard, but in Chicago, so I can get to it very easily. We're going to talk all about that soon. I do have one new review on iTunes, a 5-star review. Thank you. Thank you very much for that. From Randall, 1951, quote, intelligent, relevant, and well worth the time invested to listen to this podcast, end quote. Thank you, Randall. Short, sweet, 5 stars. I gotta love it. So thank you so much for that. Again, I'm going to have a couple more shows, and I think I can get 2 more done before I leave to go to Italy for a couple of weeks. I might have the time to get together a best of show during that 3-week period so that you don't go completely without a show for so long, but I might not have time to do that. So if there's a big gap in time, my apologies. And remember, for the people who are patrons, you only pay if a show comes out, and if I do a best of show, you don't even pay for that. Even if it has some new content, I'll make sure I check that so you don't pay. Patrons at patreon.com/Phil. If you like the show and you want to say thanks for making the show or compensate me a teeny little bit for all the time and effort putting in the show, I would greatly appreciate that. Of course, quick reminder, contributing through Patreon does not in any way establish an advisor-client relationship with me or Polaris Financial Planning. You're just really helping to offset the cost and the time and the effort that I go to making the show. It's kind of your way to say, thank you for making this show, Phil. I greatly appreciate it. I'm stunned. So many people have already done that. But if you'd like to do that too, again, patreon.com/Phil. Going to wrap up the show. Thank you for listening. Have a great day. Ciao.
I'm a married man, you know I can't hold hands. Front hug all day long with no other demands. But I ask for all of you until you say I do. No front hugging or PDA or your EG time is through. But some of y'all are slick, try to pull this trick. Your hug starts from the side, but soon it turns legit. So if you end up here, then go ahead and scream it. When I hug people, I leave room for the Holy Spirit. If a girl walks up with her arms spread wide, and she's front hug down without looking her eyes, you better turn to the side, pat her on the back. Jesus never hugged buddy like that, screaming. Give me that Christian side hug, that Christian side hug. Give me that Christian side hug, that Christian side hug. I'm a rough rider, filled up with Christ's love. Give me that Christian side hug, that Christian side hug. Give me that Christian side hug, that Christian side hug. Give me that Christian side hug.